All right, drone video for Tract 34 at the Tracts at the White River. There's some aspen trees. We're on the east side of Tract 34. This happens to be the tract where several of the little creeks come together. And although we never say anything is a year-round creek bed, anytime we've been out here, there's been at least some water where the creek beds come together here on the east side of Tract 34. I believe the day that these videos were taken, it wasn't flowing extremely heavily by any means, but it certainly was flowing. And I don't know that we'll see that in the drone video, but I believe we will in the ground video if you watch that as well. This is the drone video here. We're over the road, one of the easement roads out here. It's on the east side of the property, like I said. And when you get down to the creek bed area on the tracks out here, the tracks that have the creek bed area, you're in sort of a different environment. You have different timber, just a different feel to it, different temperature. In this case, we started seeing black walnut trees, we started seeing sycamore trees once we got down by the water here. And we're just trying to zoom in because you can only get so close with the drone when you have smaller trees. And there's some live water right there that's flowing. And that's going to be in one of the little creek beds on Tract 34. Unfortunately, that's about as close as we can get with the drone, because if you are unlucky enough to even nick a little limb of a tree, it can quickly set off a series of events and your drone hits the ground pretty fast. And about 50% of the time, that's the end of the drone, or it needs major repairs, but it's the end of the flying for the day about 90% of the time. So we try to be careful not to do that, although it does happen. And I think we're going to get some altitude here and see this from the air. We may try to look down once we're in the air and see the creek beds, but that's awfully hard to do on heavily wooded property like this. It can be done in the wintertime, excuse me, or early spring before all the leaves are out. But in the summertime, when the leaves are out and the trees are green, it is really tough to see a little stream or creek bed on a property. Now, I believe we're looking northerly as we gain altitude here. Where we started off was essentially the lowest part of the property where those creek beds come together, which is toward the southeast side of Tract 34. Even in this shot, you can see, man, 6 or 8 different species of trees there. The black walnut trees, and if we zoom in on some of those later, I'll show you the leaves. It's pretty easy to identify a black walnut tree. Excuse me. Same with the sycamore tree for a different reason. The sycamores, we think, are one of the most beautiful trees that there are. Very striking. They'll have bright white trunks and limbs. And it looks like we're kind of hunting around, seeing if we can find those creek beds from the air. But it might be a fool's errand. Now, this is one of the longer drone videos that we have of any of the tracts out here. This runs almost 12 minutes, it looks like. 11 and a half minutes. And I wonder how much of that time we spend looking for the creek beds. I'm really not sure. We're very close to the White River. I think if we gain some altitude here in a little bit, you'll be able to see that. It's only about a mile to the west. Off to the right, that's a big black walnut tree. And we're doing kind of a spiral as we go down, kind of a corkscrew. So now upper left, that's a walnut tree. If you see those distinctive leaves with numerous small leaves on each side of the branch or whatnot, numerous leaflets. Not that one, that's not a walnut. That's a different type of tree. A lot of trees we just don't recognize, but we kind of know the major ones. And most of the tracts primarily red oak, white oak, hickory, which are all hardwood trees. But we have seen a little pine out here, and we've seen cedar in different areas. Probably just about every tract has some cedar, and some tracts have more than others. But this tract in particular, what a mixture of timber. I mean, when we see that black walnut, which is a very valuable tree, and like any tree, the larger they get, the more valuable they are. But they get exponentially more valuable as they get larger, because after a certain point, it's no longer sold as what they call saw timber, which would be 2x4s, 2x8s, etc. But it's sold as veneer, which is when the tree is large enough, large enough diameter to basically put it on a spindle and make veneer out of it. Oh, on the upper right, you could have seen the White River just a second ago. And there it is. Maybe we'll zoom in here. Perfect. So we're not up super high on the drone, but we can still see the White River. That bluff right there that we're seeing actually does have a name, and there's a large cave in that bluff that was discovered quite a few years ago. Can't remember the name of that either. But that was looking essentially north, and the White River's much closer to the west, and then the river itself flows south and then east into and then through the town of Batesville, Arkansas. So Batesville is kind of the closest large town, regional town, whatever you want to call it, and that's about 9 or 10 miles southeast of the property here. Now we're just kind of checking out the general area. You can see the valleys pretty well if you are kind of looking for it, and those creek beds will be at the base of the valleys. The creek beds are all flowing southerly and then westerly, and they join together and then end up flowing into the White River. So they flow south from Tract 34, go about another quarter mile into what I believe is Glen Creek, and then Glen Creek goes west for about a mile directly into the White River. And the White River is awesome. People just love it. I mean, the fishing, the canoeing. We see people in little boats out on the White River. It's certainly clear enough. Every time we've seen it, it's clear enough that you can look right down in and see fish. So I assume clear enough that you could swim in it if you wanted to. And that access point, if you look at the maps, is close to the property. So it's one of the few properties where you've got your fishing covered, you've got your hunting covered. It's just all right here. So if you're a hunter, 10 acres might be enough for you. If you do some preparation, some food plots or whatnot. If not, there are thousands and thousands of acres of public land within a few miles to the north and northwest. There's a huge chunk of national forest that's open for hunting, we've been told. So there's just no shortage of hunting and recreation land out here. So even if you use your 10 acres as kind of a base camp and then venture out into the other public land, I mean, you could spend a lifetime and not explore it all within just a few miles of the property. Well, I was hoping we'd get a little better look at the live water, but again, the drone is not generally the best way to do that because you just cannot really get down far enough. So hopefully the ground video will show a little bit more. But Tract 34, looking at the topo map here, which we've got open on the desk next to the computer, numerous potential spots where you might be able to do a very nice building site or campsite on this property. The south end appears to have some nice level area. East side, specifically the southeast side, would put you closer to the creek. You don't want to get too close to the creek because I'm sure there will be points in time when that creek has a lot of water in it, and you don't want to necessarily put your camp or your camper or your cabin close enough where it could get wet. So the nice thing about this property is you've got multiple areas that are well above the level of the creek bed. Excuse me once again. And we're down to about the last minute here. It looks like we're trying to figure out an opening in the trees to bring the drone down. And it can be easier to get it up through the trees than it can be to bring it back down through the trees. Not sure why that is, but you just seem to have a better line of sight when you're going up than coming down. Excuse me. And there, that looks like a big sycamore tree right in front of us, but it's a little hard to say because those other trees are blocking the trunk. Gorgeous property. So if you have any questions, you can give us a call. You can, of course, send us an email. We love to talk about, as I cough one more time here, we love to talk about our available properties. We love to talk about the Ozarks, northern Arkansas, and southern Missouri. Beautiful, beautiful area. And we've long been saying that it's one of the best investment opportunities in the United States for land. If you have any questions, just let us know.